Sweet. All right, we're a little ahead of schedule, so we're doing good. Sridhar is going to be up next, and I'm personally very excited about this one. You know, Sridhar's been with Citrix over 20 years, I think. He's always lends an ear to us when we got ideas and things to bubble up to the top. Just an all-around good dude, and he's going to talk to us about, you know, what it looks like future for Citrix and the innovation there. So this is going to be an exciting one. No, I just overhyped it, right?
Yeah, the bar is too high, man.
Yeah, man. So do as well.
That's good. Can you guys hear me okay? I guess I am between you guys and beer, so I'll try to keep it short and interesting. I've been with Citrix for 22 years. My name is Sridhar Mallapudi. I run the product management and the user experience team. I guess as Mitch said in the morning, the power of waiting, I guess, worked for me. I joined, as I said, 22 years back. In engineering, kind of did a lot of roles around engineering, product management, general management. Right now, as I said, I run all the products, the product management team for Citrix. So really excited to be here, being part of Citrix in the community for a long time. I see a lot of friends and colleagues and partners and customers here. It's been almost 3 years, I think. Thanks to COVID, I guess. We've never been in person in meetings, so this is really great to see all of you. And again, I'll talk a little bit of innovation, where we are heading, but if there's any questions, if there's time, I'll take it. If not, I'll be there for the roundtable sessions as well. The first off the gate, right? I get a lot of questions. Okay, Citrix is going private. What does this mean, right? So look, the short answer is, it should not mean anything for customers and partners, right? So it's business as usual. And I'm not just giving corporate talk. As a public company, it is hard in the sense that you kind of have to make your numbers every quarter, right? It's just the brutal reality of it. Now, it's extra hard if you're driving a transformation. Over the past 5 years, we had to transform the products, to the cloud. That itself has been I would say, an amazing journey for us, but you also have to transform the business. Now, most companies who do this, whether it's Microsoft Office, Adobe, there's a lot of companies who've done, they go through what's called a fish model, which is essentially your revenue goes down because you're going from a perpetual to kind of a subscription. Think of like buying a car as opposed to leasing, right? You don't get all the revenue recognition up front, so your revenue actually goes down and your cost goes up because you're doing cloud, COGS, and everything else, and you kind of meet at the edge where they're all there and everything's fine, but it's a hard transition in a public market. And I would say over the past 2 years, I guess people were buying cryptos or Robinhood, whatever it is, like you miss something, it's really hard to be a public company, right? You get dinged, you get penalized. So I think going private for us really gives us that privacy from completing that transition, right? Transitioning the business model, transitioning the products, as SaaS offerings as well. So I'm personally definitely excited. I think in fact, I was talking to Choice Solutions and we were talking about licensing and other things. It just enables us to simplify because you don't have to understand what this means between maintenance and subscription and SaaS and what things you have to do every quarter to kind of meet your revenue goals. So it definitely keeps us off of that and just focus on customers, product, and innovation. We're also getting merged with TIBCO as part of that deal. I mean, I think they're like $1 billion or $3 billion. I mean, it's going to be a huge thing. The good news is we don't, while there's some synergies, we both sell to the infrastructure and CIOs and everything else, the products don't have a lot of overlap, complementary. In fact, the way I look at it is Citrix has always provided secure access to applications, right? In a very simple sense. Enterprise applications, secure delivery of those applications, and TIBCO kind of focused on integrating data and applications together. So I think there's some cool innovative stuff we definitely can do But anyhow, just wanted to put it out there because I got some questions what this means. Look, it doesn't mean anything for customers. If anything, it's positive because we don't have to try to either force something on the cloud or SaaS just to kind of meet the public expectations. So it's all good news. Okay, back to normal, which is been talking to a lot of customers, I would say, in the past 2-3 years. Now, this feels like preaching to the choir because we've been talking about it, and especially this community, for a long time. But these are the 3 big trends I personally see when I talk to customers. Right. First one, I would say, majority of the customers want to be in the cloud, whatever it is, right? Whether you're lifting and shifting, use Citrix Cloud, whatever the form factor is, we offer choice and flexibility for that. I still remember it was, I think, March or April 2020. COVID hit and the world kind of went haywire. And we were talking to one of the healthcare customers, and luckily they were using Citrix Cloud, and they had to ramp up their resources because they were setting up makeshift hospitals to kind of treat, have new beds and everything else. And it was really hard to buy hardware at that time. You couldn't buy enough hardware to get your hands on, not just endpoints, but even servers and networks and cables and everything else. And we got a call with Microsoft, thanks, because they had Azure. We actually reserved Azure capacity for these customers to make sure we can support frontline workers and healthcare. Like, just one example of what some of the customers realized is that, like, look, I want that flexibility, right? If I'm completely on-prem, I don't have any cloud footprint. When I want to stretch and flex, want to flex, I don't want to be in that situation, right? So, once the COVID kind of went into phase 2 and 3, a lot of customers started looking, what do I do? What do I do to cloud, right? And I still remember when we launched cloud the first time, I think it's 6 years back, it was 5 customers. Everything we heard is like, I don't need it. I don't need it, but it's kind of fulfilling to see in some way after 5-6 years, like building that out, really giving choice for customers where it's there. There was another customer, large customer. They were a big mobile shop for us. They were using a little bit of virtual apps and desktops, and then COVID hit. And they were mostly physical PCs, kind of sitting under the desk, and it was 25,000 users. They had to send everybody home. It was in Europe, it was not in America. And the first thing they did is turn on Citrix Cloud, give everybody Workspace as the access point, and put a VDA on the PC, remote PC. They went from 0 remote to 25,000 remote PC users within a course of 1 week, right? Just, again, the fact that they could tap into cloud because they didn't have to set up storefronts and all this other infrastructure and everything else to just provide simple remote PC access was a great use case as well. And now slowly they're transitioning to more virtual desktops, some physical PCs, and kind of mixing it up. But it just kind of shows you, I've seen a lot of you using Citrix Cloud, some on-prem. We love all of you guys, but I think adding some cloud kind of provides that flexibility. Second, Frank talked a lot about Zero Trust and VPN. I have a few slides, I'll talk about it. More than the details on the technology, I'll talk about why. Why do we need it? What are some of the use cases we are seeing for customers who are interested in Zero Trust? Right? Takes or demystifies some of the use cases behind that. Last, as I said, preaching to the choir, right? Everybody wants to work, remote. We've been doing this as a community for a long time. It's kind of, I still remember, this was a long time back, Mark Templeton, our CEO, was talking about, hey, work is not a place. Work is what you do. It's kind of interesting to kind of see the broader world, post-COVID, because we had to, I call this, run this experiment of working from home at a global scale, and we figured out it kind of works for the most part. And so we are, happy to kind of really enable that hybrid work. In terms of what our strategy has been, I would say over the past 20 years, we used to call this any, right? In a broad sense, Citrix provides that platform for secure hybrid work. Now, things changed, right? Users, we are working more from home. That definitely changed the dynamics as well, both from a security and user experience perspective. Any user, right? That we've always supported that. Any device, it's Chromebooks. I mean, we've seen an explosion in Chromebooks during COVID. I guess one of the devices you could buy at that time was Chromebooks, and I think we have millions of Chromebooks monthly active use every month. We track all this data, right? So huge explosion during COVID as well. It's just another device that they could get their hands on and provide access, secure access to employees. Any application. Used to be Windows, enterprise web applications. Now it's SaaS. I mean, mobile and then SaaS and some of the newer technologies around secure private access is really to provide secure access to applications. And then extending that to workflows and any work type, right? So broadly speaking, Citrix has always been that foundational infrastructure platform to enable secure hybrid work, right? Whatever device, whatever network, whatever application, and wherever the user is coming in from. I want to talk a little bit on hyperscalers, right? And what we are doing, innovating with hyperscalers, what are we doing to winning with them? And when we talk about hyperscalers, I'm talking about your Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, right? Now, most of the times, customers choose the hyperscaler. They're like, hey, we partner with Azure, we partner with Google Cloud, we partner with AWS, and we enable that. But we, again, our choice, our differentiation is choice, or it could be hybrid. It could be on-prem. Nutanix is here, great partner of ours. So it's always been, choice in providing that. But usually the customer is the one who kind of makes that decision. In terms of Microsoft, I'll talk about Microsoft, like long-standing partnership. I personally have been working with Microsoft for almost 18, 20 years. Great partnership across product, I would say go-to-market as well. Now, I always get the question, hey, are they competing or are they partnering? And I truly believe they are partnering in terms of, increasing the pie. Like in my history with Citrix and this ecosystem, when was the last time Microsoft really invested in the RDS and platform? Not a lot. Until, I would say, the past 3-4 years with AVD, the multi-user session technology running on Azure, Cloud PC. I'll talk a little bit about Cloud PC and Windows 365 as well. So in that way, they're expanding the pie for all of us. Now, if you take the entire enterprise Windows desktops, you could argue there's 1 billion of them, right? And Citrix and the ecosystem maybe touch 10% of them. What Microsoft is trying to do is increase the pie. People who've never looked at virtualization, people who never looked at virtual apps and desktops because they're just doing physical PCs and stuff, they're making it more easier to manage, economical, profitable as well. And in some ways, they're increasing the pie for all of us, including Citrix and the broader community as well. We've been working very closely with Microsoft. You can see some of the highlights we've done, enabling customers to kind of migrate their workloads to Azure. I mean, we use Azure for the control plane itself, but a lot of our customers use Azure as a resource location. PVS on Azure. PVS versus MCS. I mean, we love both our kids. We keep innovating on both of them, but PVS on Azure was an amazing, feat, to be honest, right? Because on Azure or any cloud, you don't get access to the network stack. So streaming the whole OS when you don't have access to the network stack, that was a huge collaboration with Microsoft as well. Again, some customers use PVS. We want them to support to move as they move to cloud. Some use MCS. We're happy to both, and we're innovating in both. In fact, PVS next is going to come to Google Cloud as well. Image portability service. While it's been recently launched, hugely exciting because one of the challenges customers have as well is like DR scenarios, having multiple images because you might have some on-prem, some Azure, AWS, and you have different images. You got to maintain them, keep them in sync. And with image portability service, we're making it easy to kind of move between all these different resource locations and not kind of doubling or tripling the number of images you have to manage between on-prem, or cloud. A huge new service we launched recently. The other things, I think Rich and Andy talked a lot about, supporting Azure AD, non-domain join. I mean, non-domain join VDAs, it's been a huge hit. Like, I think it's been a surprising huge hit because for security or other reasons, a lot of customers are like, look, I want to take the VDA, but I don't want it to join to the AD or Azure AD or anything, right? So it's definitely been a great success for us. And the big one we announced yesterday was integrating with Windows 365 and Cloud PC, right? So Microsoft launched, Windows 365 Cloud PC a little while back, and the premise is very simple, right? As I said, majority of Windows devices are managed physically, right? You're using SCCM, Intune to manage them, and virtual delivery was always this other thing for most customers, right? VDI. And so what Microsoft is saying is, look, if we can make a PC management in the cloud as simple as managing a physical PC, it's going to expand it. So that's the premise behind what Cloud PC is. And we've been working with them for almost a year on this, as well as for us, it's like, look, one of the best things I see about Cloud PC, it's a flat rate desktop VM on Azure, right? So we have customers who use multi-session, you have your pool desktops, you have your persistent desktops. And some customers for different use cases stick with persistent desktops. Now the challenge with persistent desktops is it's expensive, right? You're using, not physical PC hardware, using storage, and so the persistent desktop use case is expensive historically. And while customers used it, it's not been broad just because of the expense. Microsoft is trying to democratize that, right? Saying like, look, if you want persistent desktops, which is what a Cloud PC is, you could put it on Azure and do DR, all the other stuff much simpler, cleaner, easier as well. So a lot more people can do other than just few large customers. So for us, the plan is to kind of use Cloud PC as another resource location we manage, or if customers are using Cloud PC to begin with, we want to add value, Citrix on top of that as well. Now, there's not a lot of details in terms of pricing and packaging and timing, they're all coming pretty soon, but definitely another exciting integration with Microsoft and continuing the journey working with them. And the way I said I see this is just another type of PC we can manage using Citrix control plane, right? So whoever are kind of moving to Citrix Cloud using, think of this as just another way to kind of manage those physical PCs. Shifting gears, Google Cloud, this is something we started, I would say, 2 years back. Now, Google is not new to us. We've been working with Google on Chromebooks for 10 years. I still remember the first time, Sundar Pichai, when he was the product manager of Google, they launched Chrome. They did an announcement, and the only enterprise company in that announcement was Citrix, because they launched Chromebooks as a way for consumers, but they knew people would want to access enterprise resources. And if you go back, this was 10 years, 12 years back, Citrix was the only one in the keynote, talking about, and we built a Workspace app, or we used to call it Receiver at that time, and for Chromebooks. So we have a long-standing relationship with Chrome. We've been working very closely with Chrome. In fact, I would say it's one of the fastest growing platforms for us for Workspace app. I would say millions of monthly active users and growing, just like other platforms. But 2 years back, we shifted gears and started working closely with the Google Cloud team, right? And Google Cloud doesn't have a first-party service for desktop as a service, and Citrix is one of their premium partners. So we've been partnering with them for 2 years. We built some of our control plane on Google as well. It's a prerequisite to be able to transact through Google marketplaces. They have amazing technology. I mean, one of the ones we really like is suspend and resume, right? It's super interesting, super useful from a cost-saving perspective. I would say it's pretty unique. They're the one who actually first done it. And the other benefits also as well is putting things like in Google Marketplace. I mean, this applies to other marketplace as well. Now, for Marketplace, we look at it two ways. There's a private marketplace and a public marketplace, right? Some of the customers have large contracts with Azure, Google, and AWS, right? You sign up, you say, I'm going to spend $30 million over the next 3 years. And when you transact Citrix through a Google marketplace, it helps kind of burn down some of those things. And second, it also helps where customers want to start small with 50 users, something, and marketplace is just a fast way to transact as well. So we're not just innovating with them, we're also kind of making it easy to kind of try, buy, and deploy some of the services through marketplace as well. So definitely excited. I mean, we have some of the offerings you can see, standard as well as premium for Google Cloud. We personally track all the usage in the cloud, right? If I look at all the VDAs that are running on Citrix Cloud, I would say 50, 60% probably are still on-prem. Okay, it could be vSphere, hypervisors, whatever it is. 30, 40% are on cloud, and cloud is growing really, really fast. Azure, AWS, and Google, all three of them are growing. And talking about, I mean, Rich talked a lot about Citrix Cloud, and just talking about scale. On a monthly basis, we manage about 90 million sessions. 90 million sessions are launched through Citrix Cloud on a monthly basis. That's almost 1 billion sessions every year, right? So the scale is huge. The amount of testing, chaos testing, operations monitoring that goes beyond Citrix Cloud is, I would say, phenomenal, right? We came a long way over the past 6 years. I know the Cerner team is here, and they have one of the biggest deployments, right? And one of the best deployments, I always used to say, like, 500,000 sessions and stuff. So when we started, I remember, like, okay, we got, that's our first metric. How do we scale, get that level? And now we are, way past that in terms of scale and metrics as well. So long way for Citrix Cloud, and just showing some numbers, huge scale. We built things like local host cache, Project Shield, so even if Citrix Cloud or you lose connectivity to the cloud, you still can get access to applications and desktops. So lots of innovation happening, on cloud. AWS. We've done a ton of stuff with AWS. In fact, AWS was the first public cloud we supported on Citrix Cloud. If you guys remember, this was back in 2015 because they were one of the premier clouds as well. We have a lot of customers who use Citrix Cloud with resource location on AWS. We're actually working closely with our AWS Workspaces team as well. So kind of watch out for some of those things in the coming year, like Citrix ADC. I'll actually talk a little bit about ADC. We've enabled ADC and ADC as a service running on AWS as well as Azure and Google Cloud. So as I said, we want to provide choice. Wherever the customers want to put the workloads, whether it's on-prem, Azure, AWS, GCP. As I said, each cloud has their benefits, pros and cons, and we kind of support all of them. And we really try to innovate what is unique for every cloud, right? Azure is great for Windows and Office 365. Google Cloud is great for some of the Google workloads, analytics, integrating with Google Chrome. And Google Cloud has one of the best, I would say, backbone for networking, right? The high-speed network they have across the globe is huge. In fact, some of the gateway service POPs, we have about, I would say, 30 gateway service POPs across the globe because you got to be close to the user, right? I mean, you're connecting to your application desktop from your home. Your first mile is usually your ISP, and then you want to hit to the closest POP, and from there you want to be on the superhighway, right? So Google Cloud provides awesome infrastructure for that. Azure, AWS as well, but Google is definitely unique in terms of their breadth, in terms of the network highways. So you have a user hitting somewhere in India, the first ISP, they hit the Google Cloud superhighway, goes really fast to wherever they're connecting app and desktop. So we are spreading our points of presence with all the cloud providers. We basically follow the users and follow the applications and keep adding more and more points of presence as well. So that's the innovation with hyperscalers. Shifting gears a little bit, talk about user experience. We came a long way, workspace experience as well, the workspace service in the cloud as well as Workspace App. I still remember, first time we launched Workspace App, it was called Receiver a long time back. It's huge evolution across the platforms. I would say right now, from metrics, we see about 18 million monthly active users for Workspace App. Huge, right? And growing almost, I would say, 10% every month and continually keeps growing as well. And Workspace App is no longer just your HDX kind of a receiver connections, right? It does secure access to SaaS and web. In fact, there's a inbuilt workspace browser as part of your Workspace App, right? A lot of our customers use for isolated, secure access to their SaaS and internet without publishing a browser or without having to virtualize an application. And it's an embedded browser. We actually built it based on Chromium open source embedded browser. So it's got all the hardening of Chromium, but you don't have to worry about installing and securing local browsers and everything else for that, right? So that's part of it. Lots of innovation working with Apple, especially, for the tablet use cases as well. App protection, that's a new capability we released for Workspace App. And it's actually been super popular, I would say, during COVID, because when everybody went home, you're kind of connecting from devices you might not know, right? It's not a fully managed device. You got Workspace App running on your Windows or Mac. And so they deploy Workspace App protection. And basically, it protects everything that's kind of going through Workspace App, right? So it can block key loggers. It can prevent you from screen scraping, anti-malware, that kind of stuff. So it was just an additional layer. Customers deployed it. Hugely popular with a lot of our customers. We've done things to simplify storefront to workspace service migration for those who are looking to kind of move into workspace service as the access layer as well. Kind of created a simple guide to transition to that, as well as how do you distribute all the settings to users, both for managed, which is easier, and unmanaged devices. When you have an unmanaged device and you want to distribute the workspace app settings, we have built a simple cloud service to make that happen. App personalization and theming. You can brand the workspace service. You can brand the workspace app. You can change the icons if you want, put a Red Bull icon on it, whatever you want to have it, like it's fully customized as well. So as I said, lots of innovation on Workspace App as well as the Workspace service, and we've seen a massive adoption of it. HDX, always a huge differentiator for Citrix. I would say we doubled the team almost in the past 2 years. And one of the new things the team's been working on, beyond all the things we always talk about, devices and graphics and capability, is communication applications, right? I used to say before for Citrix, critical applications was healthcare, finance, all the line of business applications. Now some of the critical applications are Teams. Zoom, right? And everybody takes a call on Teams or Zoom, and nobody wants to use a second device just to support users. So we've done a lot of enhancements on Teams, Zoom, Cisco WebEx. I mean, you name it. We're not done. It's always a constant innovation because the apps are innovating. We are innovating as well. Used to be Skype for Business. I don't know how many of you still use Skype for Business, right? We supported that, and now over the past 3 years, I would say it's Teams. Right now, I think we have about 3 million monthly active users of Teams running full audio video conferencing, within a virtual desktop or application environment. By the end of this year, we'll probably double it. So definitely growing a lot in terms of usage and innovation. So that's the user experience portion of it. Shifting gears, I want to talk a little bit about secure private access. Now, Frank went through all the details and talked under the cover, but I kind of want to talk about why. Now, as I said, Citrix has always provided the infrastructure for secure access to enterprise resources, right? The apps are sitting somewhere in your data center or a cloud. It doesn't matter the location, but they are in your control, sitting behind the firewall. And how do you access those resources? You could VPN into it, right? Traditional way. You could publish it, app desktop. Or for native applications that support SaaS and web, secure private access is another way to do it. And the benefit Citrix provides is you already have the application deployed to the end user. You've already gone through Citrix Cloud, deployed the connectors in your resource location, connecting in. You already have deployed the gateway service, which is proxying all the traffic. Now this is just doing SaaS and web applications for you, right? So it's just a natural extension, for what users are doing. Now, a lot of customers are like, why? I already publish a browser, right? Why do I have to do this? Like a lot of times people don't want to access through a published browser. They want a native experience. They want to access that internal web app, whether it's Tableau or whatever is sitting behind your firewall, or a custom application through Chrome or Firefox or Safari, without going to virtualization, right? Customers are like, no, I don't want to put a whole desktop or a virtual application just for use that. That's a contractor giving access to one internal web application, or some temp use case where I need to provide them access to this application and then I'll transform them later, or as part of an M&A. And so we are seeing, while some of the basic capabilities we launched, this year we launched, full private access, whether it's a, agentless access through a Workspace app, or a web browser, or a full agent-based application, because it's more than HTTP, it's some IT tool or something else. We support all of them together. So definitely excited. A lot of customers are looking at it right now. I would say we have 50, 60 customers actively using it since we launched it earlier this year as well, and growing. And again, you can access all this information through Workspace. We provide full analytics for end-to-end access, not just for your HDX applications, but also applications that are going for SaaS and web. So definitely exciting. If you haven't looked at it, I highly recommend to look at it. Probably some use cases that might be worth. And again, you already have the infrastructure deployed, through Citrix Cloud as well as Workspace App to enable a lot of these things. The next one I want to talk about is our networking, right? And Rich talked about like ADC is kind of our Swiss Army knife and best kept secret, right? Which is true. Now, a lot of customers use ADC traditionally. At least Citrix customers have used it either for load balancing your on-prem infrastructure or using it as a gateway like a HDX proxy, right, for secure access. That's one big case. But there's a lot of our customers use ADC also for providing load balancing for other applications, security for other applications, and we basically moved that whole thing into ADC as a service. So you don't even have to kind of babysit the VPX or any of those machines. And I'll actually show a demo. Like it's a tech meetup, so you got to show a little demo as well. And I think we've shown enough demos on DAS and SPU. So I'm going to show a little bit demo on application delivery and security and how simple we kind of made it as well. Now, every time you're shopping on Amazon, you're buying something on Apple App Store using Apple Siri, you're accessing Office 365, you're going through an ADC. We front end all these, big cloud providers, right? So it's a big part of, delivering internet traffic and internal applications as well. And as customers are moving their on-prem applications to cloud and modernizing them, a lot of them are using, application delivery and security as a cloud service. Now, this is a lot of marketing. I talk about it, but I'll really show that it's not just marketing. There's product truth behind it and how simple we made it to be. Like, you just specify the intent of the application you're deploying, how to secure it, how to load balance it across the globe, and we automatically kind of do it for you. So this is our application delivery and security service, right? So anybody who knows ADC, or I'll call it NetScaler for the NetScaler fans, right? Which is the control plane is in the cloud, right? We call it ADM service. It's our control plane for management, orchestration, analytics, everything else. And usually either your hardware or your VPX, if it's a VM base, it's sitting in your data centers or cloud resource location. Traditionally, we've never managed the data plane, right? We only manage the control plane, and we say you upgrade your VPXs, you manage them, you babysit them, and whatever policies you need to apply, you have to do it. This one is actually providing you that data plane as a service as well. So you don't have to deploy the VPX, you don't have to do the upgrade or any of that stuff. And if you have pool capacity and SaaS and subscription, you can add on to that. So here, that's the new as a service offering. That's demo. You can see it, right? You can deliver an application, or deliver a multi-site application. I'll show a little bit of the multi-site application, right? So you click a multi-site application. Here, where do you want to deploy it? First pick a location. Here, we're going to pick Ireland and say how many users are coming for that application, right? You want to, this is a global application that needs to be accessed. You can pick a second user location, third user location. You can pick which cloud you want this to be deployed. We're starting here, we're showing here with AWS. That's where you want to put the application and click recommend, right? So it automatically looks at the best options you have. Do you want single site, multi-site? What are the trade-offs you're doing in terms of performance and latency and cost? Because we are deploying all these machines, VPX and all the other machines across the globe, right? So it gives you full recommendation. It's creating a simple application name for testing. You can do the application FQDN type. The other cool technology we built into this is what's called traffic management. It's a technology we acquired a long time back. And what traffic management does is based on where the application is, based where the user is, we find the fastest path through the internet so you get the best user experience, right? So that's built into this as a service. So even when you have a multi-site application, maybe something is down and the user, instead of going to Ireland, they're going to be rerouted somewhere else because it's found the fastest path through the internet. And, that's an IPM technology we built into it as well. Very simple, right? For NetScaler admins, this is huge, upgrade in terms of that you not having to deploy, you not having to architect, understand, make it really simple to do it. Super powerful. Now, along with application delivery as a service, we've actually built in security as well. So if you want to deploy WAF as part of it, it's a big part of it. One of the things that changed, now web application firewalls used to be mostly for external applications. Now things changed with Log4j. Anybody got impacted with Log4j? Yeah? And Log4j basically showed us that and this is just showing a user application, and I'm not going to go through the whole demo, but you get the gist of it. One of the things Log4j showed us is you got to take care of internal applications as well. They can get hacked too, not just external applications, external facing applications. So when ADC and our ADC as a service is front-ending these applications, we actually turn on security for you as well. So if you haven't checked out, highly recommend that as well. Lots of innovation on the networking side as well. Again, SaaSification of a lot of the assets you're doing as you're modernizing your applications, moving to the cloud. Take a look at it. This is what I tell the advantage of Citrix, right? High performance platform, unified management, doesn't matter where your resource locations control plane is, adaptive security, Frank talked a lot about it, consistent user experience, no matter what application they're using, whether it's through virtual or a VPN or private access or secure access, users get a consistent experience. And I didn't even have a chance to talk about analytics. How many of you have actually deployed analytics today in cloud? Or 20%? Definitely highly recommend that, right? And it goes beyond monitoring and kind of takes all the input we get and provides you a good user experience score, how your users are doing, what the challenge is, or on the security side to understand access. In fact, one of the interesting use cases was one of our customers turned analytics on, and they actually found out that there's a lot of users who are logging in from Ukraine and stuff, and they didn't even know that, right? So it kind of provided a different type of visibility for them to understand because of geolocation and tagging, and they could actually use that information to safeguard some of the employees because they didn't know. It's a global deployment. They don't know which contractors, which employees, and just as a practical use case of what it provided to a lot of our customers as well. So again, super excited. I kind of gave a little bit taste of the innovation that's coming. I can sit here and talk for a lot more, but lots happening. Super excited to be here, and hopefully I'll get invited again. Any questions, comments? I don't know if I have time for questions, but happy to take a few questions. Good on time? Okay, then I got my flak jacket, so any questions? Yeah. Yes. I'll repeat the question. I don't know if you got it. The question is hey, ADNS service, that's in tech preview. When is it gonna get released? It's coming in Q2. I thought it's maybe GA. I gotta check, but it's this quarter. We're doing it on AWS, and then we'll add Google Cloud and Azure as well in terms of where we deploy it. Now, today we support all 3 locations if you're managing the VPX yourself with ADM, but if you want it fully managed by Citrix as a service, it's AWS first, followed by Azure and Google Cloud later this year. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. The question is there a reason why app protection is not turned on by default in CWA? It's usually a configuration setting. We do it in Workspace config or on Storefront if you're using Storefront to do it. Mostly to avoid any app compatibility or breaking anything at the endpoint. That's usually why it is, but it's a good question. I'll follow up to see if we should. We have enough data now, but usually that's the reason why we don't turn it on by default, right? Because app protection, is essentially monitoring the Workspace app, and it does DLL injection and everything else to understand you don't have keyboard logging, you're not screen scraping and all the other stuff. So sometimes it can cause. That was the reasoning behind it, but it's a good question. I'll take that as feedback to go look into that. Yeah.
I was going to add to that. Actually, we deployed app protection for one of our customers and found out later that you can't share your screen in Teams or in other functions with app protection enabled.
That's a good one. That's an issue we are working on as well, right? Because sometimes it's too secure. So when you're trying to screen share using Teams, that looks like you're trying to screen scrape. And I mean, you can turn that off, but then you kind of lose that protection. Yeah, good point. Yeah, it's usually app compatibility. Yeah, we had a large telco customer that's deployed Citrix in their stores and everything else, and app protection was a key for them because they had a social engineering attack, and the way they could stop it is really by adding app protection and stuff like that. So nobody takes screenshots and other stuff while you're looking at sensitive information. So it's definitely been pretty popular, especially through the pandemic, given everybody's working from home and they wanted that extra layer of defense. Yeah. Yeah, just to repeat the question, we moved our CVAD DAS cloud control plane to Google as well. The question Shane had was like, hey, are you planning to do the same thing with AWS? You got Azure, you got Google, AWS. AWS mostly, I would say, when Shane, we talked to them, like they don't care about the control plane. Everybody cares about the workload because that's where the dollars are, the actual VM. So I wouldn't say that's a requirement there. Obviously with Google, we put it there because in order to put in the Google marketplace, you have to be running on Google Cloud, right? Because they don't want an Azure control plane on Google Cloud and Azure making money. So in some ways, that was a prerequisite. AWS is more flexible in that way. Yeah.
Have you seen any uptick in the AVD optimization path? Have you seen customers, do they like kind of that announcement around potential enhancements on that side and benefits for customers?
Yeah, Shane's question was, we released, it was recent, recently announced an AVD optimization pack. So for customers who like, hey, I'm going to go native with AVD, we released an optimization pack like, workspace environment management and other functionality for performance, scale, and other stuff as well. Have you seen? It's still early days, I would say. Yes, there's definitely been interest. For us, we're choice and flexibility, right? And whatever the customer's deployment is, we want to support it. Our best case is, hey, use Citrix Cloud Control Plane, manage everything, right? Manage your physical AVD, Cloud PC, and everything else. But some customers like, hey, I'm going to start with AVD and add on top as well. Definitely a lot of interest we've seen, but I would say it's too early. Yeah.
So one last follow-up question to that. Do you see the ability eventually to, inside of Workspace, enumerate AVD-based host pools so users have kind of a unified experience for Citrix and AVD through one interface? Or is there an interest for that?
I'll actually ask the question. The question, Shane, was like, hey, you got your storefront and the workspace service as well, right? It's one place where I can send all my users for accessing applications. If I have some AVD-based applications, do you want to integrate into that as well? Do a lot of people see a use case for that? These are native AVD applications, integrating into storefront and workspace service. Shane, you're not getting a lot of hands, man. It's like that's my product, man. That's my product poll. It's just everybody's like, no. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm gonna build it for you. You gotta buy $1 million license for that. I think it's a good use case. Look, I say we always follow the customers and users. So if that's the trend customers want, absolutely. In fact, one of the best sayings I have for my own team is like, look, all the questions to your answers are outside the building. So whatever our customers or partners are telling, that's usually where we follow. It's probably still early. Yeah, it's probably still early. Yeah, Jerry.
You ever thought about packaging the cloud control plane and having it on-prem, but always kind of connected and updated to the cloud, kind of like Azure Stack HCI?
The question was Azure Stack HCI, right? And yeah, you're talking about taking CVAD like LTSR or something, running it and on Azure Stack HCI, but still being able to update it, control it from the cloud. Okay. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. The question is like, so we have our control plane, right? For example, run it on Azure, which is where all our management, monitoring, analytics run. So like, hey, can you take all your control plane and put it on a Azure Stack, kind of a, on-prem your own implementation. I would say that's a tough challenge just because Azure Stack HCI is only limited services. It doesn't do all the services. We use a lot of Azure services. I mean, we use other cloud services as well, right? So not everything is supported on Azure Stack HCI. But having said that, the resource location is one we are definitely looking at, right? So, we supported the first version of it, if you remember, through SEVMM and other integrations. So we did it. So we are working with Microsoft or at least the Azure Stack HCI team to kind of do the second version of it. They haven't still decided on the licensing. Will they support the multi-session desktop on that? I mean, those are still open items from Microsoft, but we'll support it. Like, look, we're hybrid multi-cloud, right? Wherever the resource location customers want and stuff, we'll support it. The control plane is more tricky from that sense. And also it's a managed service, right? It's not just a piece of software. Yeah.
I was going to expand on that just a little bit. If you remember when I was asking, there were some people who raised their hands on the, you're going to take my on-premises from a cold dead hands functionality. Well, it would be where the delivery controllers and everything were still running on their premises, but it was managed, the management of it was real.
Yeah. Look, yeah, it could be. I mean, absolutely. I don't think it's a no. I absolutely. I mean, we depend on the Azure Stack HCI and what they support. The core CVAT or DAS control plane is pretty portable, right? And so we could potentially do that as well. We got to see what the evolution of that. And again, look, whatever deployment you're doing on-prem, hybrid, pure cloud, DAS, all the desktops, we support all of them. We're in fact, we're making some changes both in terms of licensing as well as product to kind of make that really simple, right? Yeah. Yeah, we've definitely looked at what does it take to containerize this whole thing. So make it really portable. So that's kind of one option as well. But look, the benefit of Citrix Cloud is not just, I don't have to manage these brokers and databases and all this other stuff. It's a fully managed service, right? It's always up and running. We build the whole thing. So even if you containerize it, you're still running it, right? You're still upgrading and managing and other stuff. And so, yeah, that is true, as a containers. Yeah. 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 I would. Yeah. Questions, comments? Man, no tough questions. Good. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I definitely want to thank the Citrix user group management and leadership as well for having me. It's been fun. Again, I'm here for the rest of the day. If there's any questions one-on-one, I'm just sitting right at the table. And again, thanks for all the sponsors and partners as well.